Welcome to the News9 Plus Show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. Pakistan is caught between a rock and a hard place. It held a controversial elections on the 8th of February where former Prime Minister Imran Khan's candidates contested as independents and won 93 seats. They fell short of a majority. A coalition government is expected to take over soon. It will be headed by former Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. But this fragile government is quite literally a pack of cards. And why? Joining me to discuss this are veteran journalist and political analyst Imtiaz Gul from Islamabad, Professor Sanjay Kumar Bhardwaj, and my colleague Deepak Bhadana in the studio here in New Delhi. Gentlemen, welcome to the News9 Plus Show. Gul Saab, I want to start by asking you, when will this new government of Shehbaz Sharif take over and how stable will it be really?
It's a billion-dollar question. The Parliament just resumed, began its session. All the new members, newly elected people, they took oath, and I think tomorrow will be the election for the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker. Most probably on the 4th of March, the new Prime Minister will be sworn in. And that means with that will be the kickoff for the new government, a government which will be taking over charge in very volatile conditions, economically as well as politically. I mean, we still have to figure out as to whether the reserve seats that the opposition party deserves as per the mandate, whether they get it today. The Election Commission of Pakistan has been holding back on that count out of political expedience and what it looks like at the moment. And that means the House is still incomplete, but they're also going ahead with the election of the president. Somehow, former President Asif Ali Zardari seems to be in a hurry to just get back to the president's house. So as a whole, we have seen as a coalition government that is riding on a very controversial election, and even some members of the ruling Pakistan Muslim League and of Shehbaz Sharif, they have also basically expressed it in multiple ways that this has not been a clean election, and that instead of dragging our heels, the seats that the opposition party deserves should be allotted to them. But somehow we still are juggling with, I would say, partially politically immature culture.
Juggling a partially politically immature culture. Imtiaz Saab, thanks very much. And in fact, news just coming in suggests that Pakistan has just got a $2 billion bailout from China. And that's to answer the billion-dollar question that you mentioned. There's a $2 billion handout that's coming in from China that could be a big win for the new government. It kind of assures it of financial stability in the next couple of months at least. But Professor Sanjay Kumar, the point that Gul Saab made about legitimacy, the fact that even Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's colleagues are saying the same thing. This issue of legitimacy, how long will it hang over the current dispensation, and how will it affect its capability to govern Pakistan?
Yeah, absolutely. There are three very important points raised by my co-panelist regarding the elections and the method of elections. First thing, democracy has always been in question in Pakistan. It is basically fragile democracy. You can put it hybrid democracy, or it has been, and there is a difference in degrees with other democracies in a way, because it is almost guided democracy, and the army and deep states has very significant role while the government is running in Pakistan. And why? But if the mandate is accepted by the people, number one, the mandate is accepted by the political parties, number two,
Right.
and the mandate is accepted by all. All means that even the establishment is the third thing. So the situation of 2013, 2018 is different now, because now the mandate is quite fragile, and the opposition political forces had not been given fair chance to contest the election. So it has been questioned domestically, and the people are not accepting. They are saying that this is controversial election, this is
Yes.
rigged, and this manipulated elections. And the opposition political forces, PTI, under PTI, they are trying to influence the international forces. As you said about the China has bailed out $2 billion
Yes.
of to Pakistan, but Imran Khan is writing to IMF not to bail out, because
Yes.
they should have conditioned this with the election, and they should at least examine 30% constituencies that has been voted, that it is not fair. So there are a lot of problems in Pakistan at the political front and on the question of economic bailout. And how this would go, unless until the political forces or coalition has the blessings from the deep state, that is army, the government will be formed. But there are other controversial issues about the convening of the house, because there is a constitutional norms that within 21 days of after the elections, that house should be convened, and the speaker had convened the house on today, and now it would be the mandate would be given to Shehbaz Sharif. Now there is also issues that how much Shehbaz Sharif will be accepted in Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, because Maryam Sharif has been appointed chief
Yes.
minister of Punjab, and I don't know how it would go well with this. And as also said that Asif Zardari is also in hurry
Yeah.
to become the president, and I think the issue of once he will become president, he will be in better position to manipulate things politically. Though
Yes.
president doesn't have much power, but
Yes.
if he will be in position to have a good understanding with any other force, including
Right.
establishment or PTI, then it would be trouble for the Shehbaz Sharif led government. So let's see that how the Pakistan would go in this economic crisis, in the security crisis. There are today
Multiple
inflation has,
challenges. Absolutely.
if you will see today, the dollar rate, it has reached 275 rupees per dollar. You will see that there's a protest on the gas and natural gas bills, that is
Right.
from 16,000 to 25,000. The people are on the street, they're protesting about these inflations, these
Yes.
price hike, and all these issues. So it's very critical situations, and if the government is not stable, that
Yes.
would not provide a good governance. What Imran Khan is raising the issue that IMF should bail out on the issue of good governance if they are providing good
Yes.
governance. So these things are
yeah,
very much.
Professor Bhardwaj, I just want to bring in my colleague Deepak Bhadana here on Imran Khan. Now, Deepak, we've been talking about this literally for months, how Imran is still the most popular politician in Pakistan, and his popularity only grows the longer he's in prison. Do you see a possibility of his return to power at some point?
I think that's a possibility that no one seems to be willing to rule out.
Right.
I mean, we've got Benazir Bhutto's case.
Yes.
You've got the case of Mr. Sharif.
Right.
Both of them were exiled multiple times.
Yeah,
for
but they
years
always
at
came
end.
back.
And they came back.
Right.
So it can't really be ruled out that Imran Khan may at a certain date in the future, now near or far, that can be debated.
Right.
But it can't really be ruled out whether he comes back. But to me, or as far as I understand, there seems to be a certain sense of ad hocism on part of the Pak establishment.
Right.
So political instability suits them just fine as long
Yes.
as the politicians bicker among themselves.
Right.
It suits the establishment.
Right.
What they're looking at is the economic reforms
Yep.
that they need for the IMF bailout.
Right.
That can only be taken through the House.
Yes.
Now, it may be a sense of, it may be a mere formality.
Right.
And of course, a lot of blame will come on the elected representatives, which again works for the establishment. The second thing that they're dealing with is the security crisis. Now we've got tensions with Iran, but particularly on the northern borders.
With Afghanistan.
With Afghanistan,
Yes.
we have the TTP running amok, we have attacks in Balochistan.
Right.
So these are the issues that the establishment is looking at. For
Yes.
them, they just want to tide over the next few months.
Right.
And they'll see how things work out.
Right. In fact, Gul Sahab, I just want to bring you on this point that you raised earlier on Zardari being the man in a hurry, and he wants to be a president, and it's more, it's 9th of March when you have presidential elections in Pakistan, I guess, and he's set to return very easily. But tell us about Asif Ali Zardari. He's the man that everyone's kind of overlooked in this focus, when the focus has been on, Shehbaz, Nawaz, Mariam, and Bilawal, and of course Imran Khan.
Well, Asif Zardari pulled the strings from behind. He was acting very surreptitiously, talking to the stakeholders. And it's sad in Pakistan, to what extent is it true, we don't know, that the current scheme of things basically is the handiwork of Asif Zardari himself, that he had aimed to get back into the presidential palace, and that he basically nudged the Pakistan Muslim League into taking over the government, which is like a bed of thorns because there are multiple issues, and it's not going to be easy for the new government given the financial perilous situation. The $2 billion from China, this is the money that's already sitting in Pakistani account. This is just a rollover, but more pressing issue is the balance of payment that Pakistan, and the debt servicing that Pakistan is going to do, and the much needed structural reforms which should basically put Pakistan on the way to development and growth. And those reforms have been evasive just because the political leadership has not been acting as it should have, corresponding to the challenges that are arising out of a burgeoning population. So it's a very critical situation to be in. Now, how the new government tides over it, we will see. However, one point I would like to make, that no establishment probably would like to see political instability in the country, because if the country remains politically unstable, then how can that establishment basically hope to thrive and survive? So political stability is very much in the interest of the military establishment itself. However, it comes down to personal choices as to how a particular individual has handled the domestic and foreign policy. So as what we are hoping for is sort of a synergy of action between the military establishment and the civilian government, and particularly because the military has established a special investment facilitation council as a parallel economic development structure. So a lot will depend as to how long can the civilian government go along with this SIFC, which is being personally guided by the army chief and his associates.
So it's interesting that SIFC, the fact that how deeply invested the Pakistan military appears to be in economic reforms. And I was just thinking that a parallel with India would be if, the Indian military in 1991 kind of, came in and came up with an economic revival plan. But of course, that never happened. But Gul Sahab, this thing of, we had a 1991 moment in India where India kind of embarked on the path of economic reforms. Do you see this as Pakistan's 1991 moment, the fact that you have a very deeply unstable coalition government in place, and of course you have the deep state guiding this government through? Do you see this as required for that impetus for economic reforms and liberalization? That's going to be the #1 priority for this new government.
I think there is no way around structural reforms. Without those structural reforms, I think this possibility of default and then sort of financial implosion would be staring us in the face. And now that the SIFC has come about and the IMF has also tied a lot of its funding to structural reforms, which basically are aimed at reforming the taxation culture here. Without that, it will be very difficult for any government, for any establishment to take the country forward. So the analogy perhaps is a good one, the analogy with India of 1991. In India, I think the political leadership basically decided, that there is no way around political reform. Here in this country, the political elites are more accustomed, more used to patronage, politics of patronage, of subsidies, of concessions. And that's why we haven't seen much progress so far. But now that We also have seen the results of the February 8 elections, which was an expression not only for Imran Khan, but also an expression against the forces of civil military forces of status quo. So one would hope that those who matter have learned their lessons and they will now put Pakistan on the path of structural reforms that can take the country forward.
Right. In fact, this point, Gul Sahab, that we were just speaking of with Deepak earlier on, the possible return of Imran Khan. What happens to Imran Khan? Is there a possibility that he rides the storm out, the tenure of this government and the tenure of the army chief, of course, that's more important here, and he possibly comes back, engineers his return to power? What's your forecast on Imran Khan?
Oh, this is a very interesting question. I just recall my interaction with General Pervez Musharraf back in 2002, September. I asked him basically in a press conference, so why doesn't he allow Benazir Bhutto and Nawaz Sharif to return? Now imagine, this was 2002, September, and he said, well, they are convicted, people have not condoned their corruption,
Right.
people have not forgotten their corruption. And the same was said about Nawaz Sharif again,
Yes.
4 years ago. So this is a cycle. So you cannot rule out basically return of Imran Khan
Right.
because the charges against him or the convictions
Yes.
on charges that were placed on him, they are very
Yes.
flimsy charges.
Right.
So one would hope that the rule of law will take its course and somehow, sometime, Imran Khan walks out of the prison.
Right, absolutely. And last question, Gul Sahab, before I let you go, is what happens to Shehbaz Sharif's engagement with India? Is that even being talked about in Pakistan right now? The fact that the Sharifs have a very good equation
I think
with
right
India.
now the entire focus is on Pakistan itself, the internal squabbles, the opposition hue and cry over the systematic rigging in the elections. So first, I think once we get over this in the next few days, probably then will come the issue of the foreign relations with India. India itself will be also moving into elections.
Yes.
So it will, I think, the ball will be in the court of the Indian government of Modi ji as to whether he wants to reopen the door of dialogue, contacts with Pakistan.
Right, absolutely. India heading into an election even as we speak, as Pakistan is forming its new government. How stable will it be? It seems to be a pack of cards with its own problems, a crown of thorns that Shehbaz Sharif is going to wear as Prime Minister. But thank you very much, Gul Sahab, for your thoughts this evening on Pakistan's political instability and the challenges that the new government will have to face. But Deepak, very quickly, on the 8th of February, when Pakistan was going into elections, we had a discussion on Kartikeya Sharma's show, and we came out with 3 forecasts. The first one, of course, was that Imran Khan is very popular, and if he won, it would, if he was allowed to contest, he would win by a landslide. He was not allowed to contest, but they won by a landslide. His candidates won over 93 seats, fell short of a majority. The second prediction was that Nawaz Sharif was not as popular and as powerful as people thought he was. And this is bang on because he fell short of a majority. Extremely embarrassing. The reason he's not Prime Minister. And the third is the fact that Maryam Nawaz would be Nawaz Sharif's heir. And that came true. She's the Chief Minister of Punjab. So just take a look at our predictions that we made on the 8th of February regarding Pakistan. Artificial intelligence could contribute up to $15 trillion to the global economy by the end of this decade. Now that's more than the current output of China and India combined. We're going to talk about AI's promises and pitfalls with 2 recent news developments. And joining me to discuss this are Dr. L.V. Subramanian from IBM Research India, Sakshar Dugal, AI law expert, Mr. Pawan Dugal, advocate from the Supreme Court of India and cybercrime expert, and my colleague Krishna Kumar. Gentlemen, welcome to the News9 Plus Show. Krishna, I want to start by asking you, tell us about this new humane AI thrust into India. We hear that it's going to be launched into India, and how big is this announcement?
That's right, as you're rightly pointing out, artificial intelligence and its potential is being discovered on a daily basis, and the latest on that front as far as India is concerned is that Humane AI, a startup backed by no less than OpenAI's Sam
Yes.
Altman. Humane AI, which came up with that little square, a device,
Yeah.
the Humane AI device. That company is set to enter into talks with Indian telecom companies and possibly enter India by the end of this calendar year 2024.
Right.
That's what we understand. We're talking about this device, which costs about $699 or 58,000
Right.
rupees. And also, if you want to use it, you have to get a $24 worth the data plan. It's basically like a phone or a tablet or any one of
Exactly.
these devices,
Yeah.
which is that
Yeah.
it's this big. You can make calls with it. You
Sure.
can receive messages on it, and you can use it as a projector. So it's a new world in the making. From the
Yeah.
biggest phones and the biggest screens,
Yes.
we're going down to that, and that's going to come to India in partnership with Indian telecom companies.
Right, that's a breakthrough technology. I remember when it came out a few months back, we were all talking about it at a record number of WhatsApp shares, and but this product has started shipping out, Krishna, in the US, right? It's available for purchase in April next month.
Yes.
As early as that.
Yes.
And
It is available in the US. That's the reason why they have a clearly defined product and service proposition. The product
Yes.
is available at a particular cost, $699, and you have a data plan that's going with it. It's like buying a mobile phone in
Yes.
the US. You buy the device and you buy a data plan to go along with it. Yes. So obviously
Right.
it will start shipping out in the US, as you're rightly pointing out, as soon as next month or a month from now.
Right.
The question is, how soon can it come to India? Can it come to India by November, December this year? We'll have to wait and watch as to how Indian telecom companies respond to this Humane AI is a move to be in talks with them. Bear in mind, it's a startup where $200 million have been pumped in, and you have some investors from everybody from OpenAI's Sam
Yes.
Altman to Qualcomm Ventures have invested in this startup. So exciting times ahead.
Exciting times ahead. I was just looking at the VG here. I mean, just look at it, the smartphone killer. Imagine a device, an interactive device, which doesn't have that uses your hands as the
Projection device.
Projection device. I mean, this is cool. This is stuff of Star Trek and sci-fi.
And a device that's as big as a square, like a
Yes.
watch, the dial of your watch
Yeah.
projects on your palm, which means if a message comes, you can read it on your palm.
Read
You
it
can
on
do
your
more
palm.
with it. And then also it is powered with the latest cutting-edge artificial intelligence technology, which means
Yes.
that it is going to be smarter than
Yes.
the smartphone that you're using right now.
Smarter than the smartphone that you're using now, but it has its pitfalls as well, Krishna.
Of
And
course.
just looking at this, what Google Gemini produced, what CEO Sundar Pichai said, are unacceptable blunders. And I want to ask Dr. Subramaniam here, how worrying are these glitches, Dr. Subramaniam? Is it part of the learning curve that are we going to see more of this?
Yeah, we're certainly going to see a lot more of this because AI as a technology is still evolving, right? So, the boundaries in terms of trust, in terms of bias, all of that has not been set. For example, you go to any, generative AI imaging tool and you say, give me the images of the top 10 leaders of the democratic world.
Right.
Till a few months back, Modi wasn't even in that picture of 10 top leaders,
Yes.
the largest democracy in the world, and its leader Modi, you'll not find him in that picture. I don't know if that has changed. And all this is because the data on which it's been trained is very, very Western focused, it's
Yes.
white focused,
Right.
and hence what is happening is, any questions that you ask of it about, let's say, the Indian context, it doesn't have that context built
Yes.
in, right? Because it's not built on that data.
Right.
And as a result, until, India gets into the game,
Yes.
build its own, generative AI models using Indian data,
Right.
we're going to see these kind of errors more and more, whether you call it racial, whether you call it,
Yes.
impinging on your nationalistic, things.
Right.
But it's there because the data is like that.
Right, the data is like that, and in fact, that's exactly how it works, right? It trains on data, and it all depends. The output depends on the kind of input that it gets, Krishna. This is going to be a challenge, I guess, until India gets into this AI thing, which we are not. Clearly, we are way behind the rest of the world.
Right.
And this is something that we discussed in the Global Summit as well.
Yes.
Several sessions. But Sakshar, I want to bring in on this point that Telecom Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar said that a global regulation for AI is coming in July. And what do we know about this regulation and what's it going to look like? Is it going to be like the US system, the US AI regulations that's more liberal, or the conservative EU kind of AI regulations?
Well, one thing is for sure that as Rajiv Chandrasekhar has said, it will be more like flexible in nature. Because seeing the India's nature, where every business, every country today is betting on India, we can't afford to have extremely liberal as well as extremely strict regulations. But at the same time, we are actually right now behind the curve. Because if you see the spectrum, the gap is increasing between technological advancements and the legalities that are coming. No doubt, if in July we are successful in bringing these regulations intact, still I feel there is this term called cyber auditing that we have to do. What is that? In simple terms, that like we generally do auditing in our companies with the kind of revelations and new developments that are taking place in the AI spectrum. I feel after every month, you have to check and balance as to what new legalities, what new rules and regulations have to come. For example, Sora has come. OpenAI is bringing Sora. On one side, we can see new videos, authenticated videos are being developed. But on the other side, I feel this will pave more advanced deepfakes as well. So if these kind of challenges are coming up, then I'm definitely sure that these regulations are coming, that's for sure. But regularly, we have to audit these and we have to bring in new regulations in time.
Yeah, and speaking of new regulations, Mr. Pawan Dugal joins us now. Mr. Dugal, you know, the point that Sakshar raised about deepfakes, we are in the middle of an election season and already a lot of political parties have started using deepfakes for, you know, basically reviving a lot of leaders that have been dead for many years because they don't have the kind of, you know, mass leaders anymore. So in the south, especially in Tamil Nadu, you're looking at a lot of AI generated images of leaders. But do you see the potential of this being misused in electioneering, in, you know, mudslinging? And given the fact that our regulations are going to come only much later in the year, this 2024 elections, how critical is this AI, the misuse of AI, going to be in this election?
I think these elections are going to see some remarkable misuse of generative AI for the very simple reason deepfakes will be extensively used for the purposes of trying to impact not just the electoral process, but also the decision making of voters and even the election results per se. So in that regard, most of the stakeholders know pretty clearly that India doesn't have any kind of legal framework on deepfakes, and the existing frameworks under the Information Technology Act 2000 are thoroughly inadequate to deal with these. So we should see some massive role of these deepfakes in elections 2024. And the precursor signals in this regard have already come from Pakistan. In the recently concluded Pakistan elections, we found that deepfakes played a very important catalyst role in determining how the elections ultimately panned out to be. So all eyes will have to be now on the Election Commission of India to see how it can go ahead and try to minimize the misuse of deepfakes in the election process till such time we come up with a dedicated legal framework in this regard.
So 2024 elections, of course, going to be the proving ground for deepfakes, and there's been a slow build-up, Krishna. You know, you had the Argentine elections for the first time. They used deepfakes with candidates on both sides, you know, pitting each other in using deepfakes.
And right here in India, you had after the scandal of an actress's deepfake coming out, you had almost immediately Prime Minister Modi's deepfake video also come to the surface.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, so Dr. Subramanian, this point about the misuse of AI, I mean, it's right now it's in the news mainly for that, the misuse, the potential to cause harm, to inflame public opinion. You see that as a major challenge, you know, in the absence, as Mr. Dugal mentioned, the absence of any regulation yet. You see that as a problem in the months ahead?
Certainly, you know, because there are three aspects to any technology, right? The first one is the legal aspects, which we are discussing. The other is the technological aspects, you know, how is the technology evolving? And the third is the social aspect, right? Which is how do people perceive it? How do people react to it? And are people getting fooled? Of course, there are people who are trying to fool people, but are they even getting fooled? And yes, we are observing that the technology has advanced so much that it's so difficult now to distinguish between real and
Yes.
fake, right? And so there is a challenge, technological challenge also. How do you distinguish between real and fake? Are we going to come up with new technologies which will enable us to do that? Right now, there are none, right? So how do we figure that out? Number one, the legal aspect, as you pointed out, pornography,
Yes.
in elections, creating fake personas of people, right? So all of these are challenges, and and there are no solutions right now, because even the law is evolving, and it can only do as much as that, because the technology is moving so fast.
Yes.
The law can only, it cannot keep up, because our laws usually take several years.
Yes.
But in this case, the technology is evolving so fast, almost every week you have something new coming out.
Right, absolutely. That's the pitfalls there, Krishna, about technology moving so fast, especially with AI. And what was that they said about rumors? That a rumor travels across the world even before truth has a chance to put its shoes on. I think that seems to be the case here with AI, and especially with regulations here in India. Given the fact that how we're still playing catch up, not only in the technology but also in the the regulation and the legal framework. As
if I can just add one small thing to it, that's why when Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar spoke of regulation,
yes,
he was talking about how this time around, for regulating the latest piece of technology, you have the global south in the form of India taking the lead and not necessarily giving it away to the US and UKs of the world.
Right.
And more importantly, along with regulation, Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar making it clear that first and most importantly, the potential of AI to add to the Indian economy and global economy, and all the innovations should not be curbed.
Yes.
Even as we work hard and fast towards curbing deep fakes and all the negative effects of artificial intelligence. So India, and the former Indian Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar, sending out a very important message of you need to regulate AI, but you may also make sure that you take all the potential it has to offer to mankind.
Right, absolutely. And that comes with any new technology, any cutting edge technology like AI, and the kind of the promises and the pitfalls, of course, is what we're talking about. I'd like to thank my panel, Sakshar, Dr. Subramaniam, and of course, Mr. Pavan Dugal, my colleague, Krishna Kumar. This is one subject that's really hot, and we've been covering it. Krishna, I get the feeling that we're going to be talking about AI for the next couple of months, the way we did about Google 20 years back. And then it's become part of our lives now. Who talks about Google anymore? And here you have AI, promises and pitfalls, especially with the new killer app, the Humane AI pin that we're just talking of, that's going to hit the Indian market very soon. Who knows what promises and pitfalls and new problems it comes up with. In fact, my colleague Ashish Sharma spoke with Stanford professor Anurag Mehral on the promise and pitfalls of AI at the What India Thinks Today Global Summit. Let's watch.
I think of breakthroughs with AI at the two ends of the spectrum and everything in between. But the two ends of the spectrum is often what we consider to be quote unquote low end of healthcare, which is primary care. It should not really be low end. It really should be the high end care in the community setting, at homes and the communities, which have over the last few decades have been ignored actually. And a lot of conditions, 80 to 90% of the conditions can potentially be caught there, including cancer. So often when we think about cancer treatment or cancer care, catching cancer and then treating it, we often think of those advanced cares in the advanced care settings where the cancer has reached a certain stage. So if you just take cancer as an example, both ends of the spectrum apply, catching them early in the communities, using the healthcare professional capacity that we have in those regions. Of course, we are not going to get cancer specialists there, oncologists, but we do have healthcare workers in those settings. So how do you take AI, really complex AI, turn that into a usable AI for that part of the healthcare system to catch cancer early and take steps to mitigate the risks that might exist for cancer in that community. On the other end of the spectrum is this advanced care where we Tata Memorial or Sloan Kettering or any of these major cancer institutions. You can use AI to identify phenotypes of cancers, identify potential interventions that are rooted in data. Cancer is a very complex disease, and there is just not enough understanding of how the disease progresses and how it impacts individuals. So in terms of precision medicine, if we can bring all of that data to bear in treating in a very personalized way every individual cancer patient, that's the other end of the spectrum. You could also use AI to come up with potential new therapies, adjunct therapies, combined therapies, things of that sort. Another interesting use case for AI is in recognition of the tumor and edges of the tumor, so that you're treating very precisely that tumor and not killing the tissues outside, because in many cancers, it's not the cancer that kills them, it's the treatment. I teach at Stanford School of Medicine, and my students include MD students there, and there is a certain degree of trepidation, excitement and trepidation. What does it mean to be a clinician? What does it mean to be a doctor in that AI world? Do I need to become an expert at AI? Will AI take away my job? Will AI become the doctor? I think the likelihood of that happening is low. I play down that risk substantially. The risks that future doctors do have is if they don't use these tools effectively, they will become less relevant. So they should think of this more as a tool, just another set of tools, similar to the various tools that have come about over the last many decades. It's just another tool, and it allows a doctor to become more efficient and more successful in treating their patients. That's the way I would approach.
India's elite national security guards are the country's premier counter-terrorism force. Now, they have planned to replace their Labrador dogs with Belgian Malinois assault canines. We leave you with this story by Deepak Bhadana on what makes the Belgian Malinois so lethal. Thanks for watching.
Assault dog attacks with the purpose of incapacitating the enemy. The pressure exerted by a dog's bite is around 200 pounds.
एक बार में ही किसी इंसान का हड्डी को आसान तरीके से तोड़ सकता है.
When we tell them to go, they speak the language of pain. Frankly saying, they are very friendly.
They may be friendly, but they are the elite assault canines of the Indian Army. You know them better as the famous canine soldiers Zoom and Axel. Born and raised for combat, these canines have already saved the lives of hundreds, if not thousands of soldiers and given their lives forever. They are the dogs of war.